Hello, everyone. Nancy's already laughing. Hi. Welcome back to another episode of Door to Door. I'm Virginia Stanley here with my sidekick, Christopher Connolly, and we are here to celebrate the book birthday of a fabulous book written by the fabulous Nancy Pearl and the fabulous Jeff Schwager, and it's called The Writer's Library. And boy, are you in for a treat when you open up this book, because you will see and learn a lot about the authors who profiled in this book and the books that informed them and shaped their lives. Not only is this a great peek into these terrific writers and what, just what sort of informed them, but it's a great resource, which I really love. I've yet to see a finished copy of the book. So, but there's unending lists, which of course they do end, of titles that you get to, that they've culled together. So without further ado, Nancy Pearl and Jeff Schwager, congratulations to you both, and thank you for coming on to Door to Door.
Our pleasure. And Virginia, I have to say, we have not gotten finished copies of the book either.
And I didn't even know it was translated into Finnish. So,
What?
Bad joke.
That it was
Finnish.
Good one.
That's really
good
fun.
joke.
I love that. That's good. I thought, Then I thought you were going to say, I didn't even write it. I'm like, I know, such a strange time, and such a strange time in so many ways. But so thrilled that we can have you on to mark the pub date of this book that I feel we have been talking about for such a long time. And it's really, it feels so long ago, and in a way it was, but it's just such a great idea. And it's just so interesting because the authors are also different, and yet there are so many, there's a lot of connective tissue I found between a lot of the authors who were profiled, and what the kind of stuff and the level of the stuff that they were reading, and they were really little kids, like Madeline Miller, the stuff that just reading is amazing. So let's just dive in, and so happy birthday, happy book birthday. It's not your birthday, but it's the book's birthday. And I just want you to talk for a couple seconds about the book.
Well, it was Jeff's idea, the whole book. So why don't you start, Jeff, and you could.
Okay. I met Nancy when I was interviewing her for another project for the Washington State Jewish Historical Society. She was honored as an agent of change, one of 20 remarkable Jewish women in Washington State. And we just hit it off. We found that during the interview, which never happens, we just bonded. And we decided to get together, and we started hanging out and talking about books. And I had this idea of doing a coffee table book, actually, about what writers' libraries looked like. And I asked Nancy if she would be interested in collaborating with me. And she said, well, probably not a coffee table book, but an interview book would be fun. And I said, that sounds even better. We can travel around the country and see people's libraries and talk to them. And that's what we did. It was great. We went to the Bay Area of California, which is on fire now. We went to Southern California, which is on fire now. We went to upstate, to New England, to New York, of course, Philadelphia, where we interviewed Madeline Miller, and just had a great time.
Well,
Minnesota.
Except when we got lost. That was a problem.
We went to Minnesota, where we interviewed Louise Erdrich at her bookstore, which was neat. And yes, we did get lost. I'll let Nancy tell that story.
Well, I don't know that it's worth telling. I'll just say that neither Waze nor Google Maps nor Apple Maps knows anything about that part of New England where upstate New York touches like New Hampshire and Maine, and yeah, we went round and round in circles. So
Yeah, if you're going to the Breadloaf Writers Conference, anyone who's listening, don't use any of those apps to try and get there, because that's where we were trying to get to.
right, use a paper map.
Oh, a paper map. Well, at least you had the good sense to stop before you got into the middle of a lake. I mean, we've heard those crazy stories, and it's like, well, how did
Right,
that happen?
right.
Maybe your next book should be about how the two of you navigated all of that, because really, when you think about it, I mean, it's really quite the undertaking, that you, I don't know, that you came up with this idea, that it came to fruition, that you figured out, the order in which to go and talk to people. I mean, that's a whole thing. I mean, that is a lot. That's a lot of planning and a lot of logistics. And
Well, I was going to say, I think the two hardest parts about the book, for me at least, were one, deciding who we should interview.
mm,
Deciding on a list of people that we would like to interview, and then trying to get people to agree to be interviewed. And I won't say that Jeff and I came to fisticuffs, but we do agree on many of the many of the people on the two lists. We each made a list that we made overlapped, but there were some, if Jeff had his way, we would have to travel to the underworld or the overworld to interview Philip Roth, for example, who Jeff would have absolutely loved to interview. So that was one issue was, coming up with the final list and then hoping that authors would agree to let us interview them. And then the hardest part for me was trying to, we taped the interviews when we met with the authors and then had to transcribe them. And we transcribed a couple of them. And then I think I basically gave up and said, this is impossible. We have to find somebody to do this for us and then work with the transcription that they do. So luckily we found a lovely, lovely young woman who works at a bookstore actually in Seattle, Finney Books. And she was so thrilled to do it. And we owe her a lot.
Yes.
And if we saw the finished book, if anybody saw the finished book, they could find her name in the thank yous.
well,
Thank you, Annika.
Right.
Annika. Okay, well, if anybody out there has seen the book, let Annika know. Her help was greatly appreciated. Yeah, I can't even imagine. And we all know that, from the time of the beginning of the germination of the idea until today, so much time passes in so many different stages of the book. And so they're really, I mean, for the two of you to, as you say, you had your Venn diagram of parts that, people who you agreed on and then people you didn't agree on or whatnot, and then getting to those people and then whittling that down is really, really quite the accomplishment. And as I say, there are some really interesting, illuminating conversations and book lists in this book. I feel like this is a book about people, but it's also a great reader's advisory tool. As I've told you before, Lori Moore is now, I'm ordering her books like crazy because it's so wonderful, and I had not read her before, and so it's quite the deep dive. I love it, and so now, Chris, is there anybody that's hanging around that might want to come in? Can't hear you, Chris.
Yeah. Funny you should mention that, Virginia. I think there might be someone. I don't know. Let me bring this person on.
This person might have something to say.
Let's see.
It's not Philip Roth, is it?
No, better not be.
Hi, Tara.
It's Tara Parsons.
Oh, let's.
I just unmuted myself.
Oh, good.
Hi, Tara.
Hello, Tara. Tara Parsons,
Hello.
editor of the book and the associate publisher at HarperCollins. You know, it's funny that you're talking about the audiobook, Tara. Would you like to say a few words?
First of all, happy book birthday to two of my favorite authors.
Thank you.
You guys are amazing. It's been such a pleasure working with you both. I barely had to do anything. I basically just had to read it and say, this is amazing, because both of you brought such sort of warmth and wisdom to all of your interviews and humor. I feel like this book made me, who reads all the time, love reading all over again, and really inspired me to buy more books to read and add to my library. It just like fills you with, I think, joy, which is a great thing to have at this time. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you for liking the book and being there to guide it to publication. We're just so grateful and thrilled to have worked with you. For me, worked with you again. That was my dream.
We couldn't have done it without you. I mean, we could have, but it wouldn't be in print. So what good would that be?
Well, I think it's worth mentioning, George. Did you mention George and Lizzie? Did we? No.
Oh, you guys haven't talked about George and Lizzie. Nancy's first amazing novel, George and Lizzie. I had the pleasure of publishing it at my previous company. Oh my gosh. And it was such an amazing book. George and Lizzie still stay with me. I still think about George and Lizzie every now and then. They're such a real life couple to me. So Nancy is just an incredible writer. And I hope we'll see even more from both of you soon.
Well, thank you.
We would love that. But Tara, I don't think I've ever said in public how amazing it was that you understood George and Lizzie right from the get-go. And you know, Virginia and I have been friends for a long time, and I had told her the story. We were having breakfast, remember, Virginia, in New York, and I said, do you want to know how it ends, Virginia? And she said, yes, but you just got it, and you made it better. I tell people all the time that the way you edited that book, you asked me like 10 really good searching questions and said, I need these answered. And it added like 15,000 words, and it just made the book so much better. So I feel like I just owe you, untold thanks and gratitude, and wow, thank you.
All right, that's going to go on my gravesite. So I've got to transcribe this later.
Oh, God.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, I have to take this opportunity to tell everybody some extra special things about the book, because not only will it fill you with joy, but I think it also has a lot of special qualities to it in different formats too, that I want to make sure everybody knows about. So I'm very lucky that I have a print copy right here of this gorgeous book. It's so beautiful. And I wanted to point out the illustrations. So the illustrations, you know, Nancy and Jeff, you know, saw all of these authors and really, you know, took pictures of them and spent time with them. And we were able to hire this amazing illustrator named A.E. Kiernan. And he's done incredible work for Entertainment Weekly, Billboard, for Target, for Ferragamo, for all kinds of people. We really wanted it to have this sort of New Yorker feel. Of course, now I can't, oh, here we go. Here's Layla Lalami. Really just gorgeous illustrations that we love so much, that I think elevate the book, make you feel like you're there with all of them. My favorite illustrations, of course, are of Nancy and Jeff. Oh, I know we're screen sharing, so it's great to see some of those pop outs too, Chris. But yeah, these are my two favorite illustrations of beautiful authors.
Thank you.
Chris, should I give you some time to screen share and show some of those up close to everybody?
And I'm going to have that illustration etched on my gravestone. So.
Apparently nobody here is feeling very well. They're so beautiful, you know.
Who
And they're
is?
just, these are just so fan. Look at these.
And look, Luis looks just, I mean, that's such a wonderful drawing of him, and he's such a wonderful writer. And the interview with him was so much fun.
Oh yeah, he was hilarious.
Yeah. You know, every single interview in here is special in its own way. You know, I mean, the way I would read the book is to read an interview a night, you know, and sort of take in what they're saying. Oh, there's Madeline. She's so wonderful. And
Madeline is joining Nancy for a library conference at some point during our virtual
library
book tour.
appearance, right? At Princeton, at the Princeton Public
Oh,
Library.
right, sure.
Yeah.
Now, Tara, do you want to talk quickly about the audiobook?
Yeah, so that's another extra special thing about this book. So the audio of this book, you know, it's very rare in a book like this that the authors themselves can actually record their pieces of the interviews. And not only do we have Nancy and Jeff recreating their interviews, recording it for this audiobook, a handful of authors, 5 of the authors actually were able to read their own interview portions too for the audio. So Luis, so exciting that he's in it, as Siri Hustvedt, Lori Frankel, Vendela Vida, and Richard Ford. You'll hear their voices. They're doing their own interviews. I mean, how much more intimate does it get? And as an added extra bonus, Jeff and Nancy actually recorded all of these interviews in the first place. And it was just sort of the audio quality wasn't quite there for us to use the original recordings for the audiobook, which is why we recreated them. But we used some of the original recordings as a little like extra special feature at the end of the audiobook. So you'll hear Michael Chabon, Islet Waldman, and Layla Lalami's actual interviews with Nancy and Jeff. So there's so many special nuggets about all of this book that really make it into a total reading experience.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's and I was listening to some of those, and they're so wonderful. It's just a whole nother dimension. So that's there. I think, Chris, you've got the link up. If anybody wants to get the audio, it's there, right, Chris? Yep. Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. Next thing we need is an edition of this book in 3D. I just want to virtually hug you guys. So yeah, very exciting, you know, and as I say, it just brings a whole new dimension to this whole experience. So Tara, thank you for talking about that and for editing this book and for just, you know, making something that looked like it couldn't be any more wonderful, even more wonderful. So,
it was my pleasure, and thank you both. Jeff and Nancy, congratulations on your book birthday. I'm so excited that this book is out in the world, and everybody has to run out and buy it in any format because it's so wonderful.
yay!
Well, thank you.
Thank
you, Tara, for being our book midwife.
My pleasure anytime.
Bye.
Bye.
She's great. So cool. So great to have the editor on to sort of, you know, their point of view and what that whole thing is like. I love what she says. I really didn't have to do much because you guys are such pros and you really, you know, you knew what you wanted this to be. And she's, and you had your working relationship with her, with George and Lizzie, which is,
Right.
you know, I love that book. Not a HarperCollins book, but I love that book so much.
Yes, she was wonderful. And I just wanted to say that I believe we owe you thanks as well, Virginia, because the very first interview we did for the book was with Jonathan Lethem. And I think you helped us arrange that interview.
Oh, God, that was so long ago.
And it's also the first interview in the book. But as we were getting started on the project, we needed a guinea pig. And the perfect guinea pig was the incredibly widely read Jonathan Lethem, who happened to be in Seattle on his book tour. And Nancy called you up and you set that up for us. So thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure. Anything that I could do.
And actually, we got a note from Jonathan. He got a finished copy of the book, and he read his interview and wrote us and said, you know, he just loved it, and that he really thought it reflected who he was better than a lot of the interviews over the years that he's done.
Well, come on. I mean, you know how to get that information, you know, how to elicit that, and just by being so wonderful and I don't know, just disarming and lovely, and he is too. I mean, we had him on a Facebook Live not that long ago, and
Oh, you
he's
did?
just he's just so great. Chris, did we have him on with Diane Cook, right? The New Wilderness. That was so cool because he was so generous with her. That was her debut fiction, and it was, well, yeah, it was her debut novel. It was just amazing. So he is just absolutely lovely. Speaking of lovely, Chris, is there anybody knocking on our door?
Funny you should ask, Virginia. I think there is.
Oh, who could that be?
Let's check it out.
All righty. Open the door.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Hello. Connect to audio.
Legend. A
Hi,
true
Russell.
legend.
Can you hear us, Russell? Uh-oh.
Let's see.
We can't hear you. There might be a audio connect that you can do.
Let's see. Yeah, sorry, everyone. I'm looking to see if we can get Russell on audio here.
While we're doing this, I'll say that Russell is the grand finale of the book. He's the final interview in the book, which we wanted to do because his interview ends on such a lovely note, and talking about reading Tolstoy or rereading Tolstoy, and how wonderful that has been for him. And it just seemed to wrap the book up in such a special way. Can we hear Russell yet?
Yeah, now I figured out which button to push. Hi, Virginia. Hello,
Hi,
all.
Russell. How are you?
Hi, Russell.
Nancy and Jeff, congratulations to you. It's a wonderful book, and I'm proud to be in it. And you should be proud of it. It's a terrific thing to have and to have made.
Well, we are proud, and proud to have you in it. And I know Nancy has an incredible history with you, which she should tell.
Yeah, we go back.
Yeah, we do. Well, so back in the day, in 1998, Russell's book, The Sweet Hereafter, was the very first If All Seattle Read the Same Book choice. And we chose it because there is not any book that's better for book groups to discuss than The Sweet Hereafter, both because of the topic, which is how a town deals with tragedy, but also because of the way it's written from the points of view of 4 different people. And it's just a brilliant book. And we were lucky enough that Russell agreed to come to Seattle, met with many audiences in different sizes. And the first question that everybody asked him was, what happened after the book ended to some of the characters?
I know.
And Russell said, I don't know. And that was the perfect answer.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, right. So it was such a thrill for me when Russell agreed to be part of this book, and you know that I got to see him in person again.
Yeah, we had fun. We had a good afternoon. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, the book does something that writers dramatizes and demonstrates something that that writers know, but not necessarily all readers know. I've been reading in the book already. Of course, I read my own interview first, and then worked back to the front. But it demonstrates that books are made out of books, and that writers, while making a book, while writing a book, are in a kind of colloquy with other books, other writers. crosses time and languages and cultures. It's a kind of call and response that operates while you're working, and by examining and speaking, having the writers themselves speak about the books that they are reading and read and reread. You're demonstrating that basic truth. And I'm grateful to you for that.
Well, we're grateful that you shared this story of building that big project about Brazil in the hallway of the school.
Yeah, Mrs. Doherty in the 4th grade in Rumford School in Concord, New Hampshire. I know, she was a smart lady.
Yeah.
Those smart lady teachers back in the 1940s and 50s were really something, weren't they?
Yep. And we loved your story about Nelson Algren and Bread Loaf. And I mean, I have to say, I've dined out on your stories.
Well, I've dined out on a few of them too, Nancy.
Well, sometime we will have to dine together.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's really do it. It's so good to see you. Yeah. It's so good to see all your faces, and you, Virginia, too.
It's so great to see you, Russell. Yeah. Oh, and we're so excited about your forthcoming
book
in the spring of 2021, Foregone, which is just we'll have you back on to talk about that book, because there's so much to talk about in that book. It's really such an enlightening, eye-opening, moving, compelling, and oh my God, it's wonderful to have another book with you, Russell, and I'm so excited about it. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to read it. Will you send me a copy, Virginia?
If I ever get my hands on one. No, of course we will. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in galleys now, just starting to go out, I think.
Yes.
And I just turned in today, not today. Well, I mailed it in this morning. Yeah. A new novel that I've finished over the last 10 months or so.
Oh my, really?
We follow up a year later from
God.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Well, this pandemic has been good for my writing because it's kept me home.
Yeah. Right.
That's very exciting, Russell.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, the book is
Congratulations.
Foregone. Yes. Foregone, coming out in, I believe it's March. Is that right, Chris?
March, yeah.
March, yeah, 2021. Can't wait to talk to you about it.
Great.
And just, I was there with you all for if all of Seattle read the same book, The Sweet Hereafter, and it was just, I will never forget it as long as I live. It was just it was momentous, and
it was the first one in the country, and they even had little badges. I have one in my office that says, "I'm reading Russell Banks," and that people, I even saw cops wearing them. And that's a result, really, of the success of the program in Seattle. Other cities started picking it up, and they used The Sweet Hereafter for a lot of them. Rochester, New York, and a half a dozen other cities followed your lead. And so I am grateful to you a dozen times over.
And it's such a wonderful book. I mean, if anyone out there hasn't read The Sweet Hereafter yet, you should really read it. At that time, I was familiar with Russell's work from Affliction and from Continental Drift. And The Sweet Hereafter is such a different book from those books. And yet, in a way, you can hear the same intelligence behind it, but the amazing compassion that you bring to The Sweet Hereafter, it's still one of my favorite books ever. So thank you for writing it. It's wonderful. And also a very rare thing, the film adaptation is wonderful.
Oh yeah. Adam McGowan's film is an elegant and eloquent adaptation. Very
and
rare.
Sarah Polley's performance is so wonderful, and she's gone on to be a great filmmaker.
She has.
So just so many things about that book that I love.
Yeah, great. That's had a good history.
Yeah, and that wasn't a brand new book when you celebrated it, and it went back on the list out there. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what's so wonderful. I've been tweeting and putting on Facebook every night my backlist book of the day. And I just think that we need to pay much more attention to these wonderful books that were published in the past. And any book that you haven't read is a new book to you. So
Yeah.
it's just wonderful that it's still in print and it's available, and book clubs should do it. It's just great.
It's also been adapted to theater in Europe. There are 2 or 3 different adaptations that play in Europe, and then there's a fellow in Canada now who's adapting it, trying to adapt it to a musical. I mean, it doesn't really lend itself, I don't think, to a musical, but if he wants to try, let him go.
Oh, that's just wrong.
No.
Maybe an operetta.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Russell, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here. It's great to see your faces and hear your voices. And I hope we can continue to do this over time.
Well, thank you,
Virginia,
Russell.
I'll probably see you, Virginia, in the spring.
You will before that too. I'll be bugging you.
Okay, good. Please do. Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
Take
Russell.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Russell Banks, isn't this fun?
That was a great surprise. Thank you
Surprise!
for
Did you
arranging
know?
that.
Oh, he just popped in. We didn't know he was coming on. Oh, my-
What a master! Just a master American writer,
Yes.
and what an honor to have the opportunity to talk to him in his home. You know, just someone I've admired for my entire adult life as a writer, and to get to meet him. Nancy, of course, already knew him.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a great experience.
And a lovely man. I mean, a wonderful writer. Rule of the Bone is another one. I mean,
Oh yeah, beautiful book.
The Lost Memory of Skin.
And yes, I love that book.
Mhm.
Oh my God. Yeah. We got to do a Russell Palooza. Christopher, is there anybody else knocking on the door?
There just might be. There
Who
just
could
might
that be?
be.
Let me open it up.
There's only one way to know.
Open. It's like the dating game, remember? You open up a little plastic door.
This is so exciting.
Who's this?
Oh my gosh.
Hi there.
Andy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hello.
Hi, Jeff. Happy birthday.
Hey, Andy, if I'd known you were going to be here, I would have had my pugs at the table.
Well, I wanted to ask you about your pugs.
Oh my God. They're now 16 weeks old. Felix and Phoebe.
Oh,
And,
man.
they are the joy and trouble of my life. And they met Nancy's grandchild, Sarah, yesterday and leapt all over Sarah. And I don't know if Sarah will ever come to my home again, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm so glad you got pugs. They're nothing but comedy.
Pure joy.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
well, my wife and I had Edgar and Ella previously, and that was why I fell in love with Olive so much immediately when we came to your house, because she reminded me of Ella, my little girl, who was no longer with us, and it was just a pleasure to get to hang out with not only you, but and your husband, but with Olive as well. And we have a wonderful picture of Olive sitting on Nancy's lap somewhere.
Hey. Well, I'm not with Olive right now. I'm staying with Michael Chabon and Ayelet Waldman in Maine with their dog, Agnes, who's here near me somewhere.
We met Agnes.
Yeah. They send their love. They're out sailing right now.
Lovely.
Or I would have them on. But
So
maybe you guys can put away an argument in the house. Ayelet claims that they were not interviewed together. They were interviewed separately. And Michael said, of course we were interviewed together. Look at the way it is in the book.
They
They were
totally interviewed together.
Thank
Could
you.
not-
Okay.
could not have been more together if if they tried. They were eating peanut butter and banana sandwiches in their kitchen/dining room. And two of their children came in during the interview, two of their sons, who we got to meet. And
Zeke and Abe.
I mean, the joy of that interview was that they were together, and
Yes.
the back and forth of their discussions was a sight to behold and to hear, and now to read. So
yes, the banter was amazing, and in fact also to listen to, because there is an excerpt from their interview as one of the two that we included on the audiobook of the actual interviews.
yeah.
Right.
So you can hear Michael and Ayala at banter. It's kind of like I Love Lucy, would you say?
Yeah, right.
Well, I live with them now, so I can tell you that sounds right.
And getting to reconnect with you, Andy, because I met Andy years ago, when your first book came out,
Yeah.
and interviewed you for the TV show in Seattle, and I felt like we just hit it off and had just a great time. And so when Less came out, I interviewed you again in Seattle, and then Jeff had the idea to do a collection of interviews, and I thought, well, who have I had the most fun interviewing over the years? And it was Andrew Sean Greer. So we were so thrilled that you agreed to do this.
It's so fun. How did you manage? I was curious. It's not so hard with me, but others are a tougher nut to crack to get past we're so used to interviews, and we have a sort of false character of the author that we present, and then there's the real person. How did you get that out of us?
Well, don't you think that part of it was that because you weren't talking about your books, the books you've written, when somebody's talking about a book that they love, they get this sort of smile on their face. I always, tell my students when they're talking about books that they love, that they smile just naturally because it was a pleasurable experience. And I think that because we talked about the books you've read rather than written, it kind of lopped off that writerly part and became the readerly part, if that makes sense.
I think that's what's so smart about the book and what's such a pleasure. Like whenever, the big conversational trick is always to get, I do this when I interview writers. I try to figure out what their other passion is. That's how I start the interview. You start with baseball with Stephen King. You don't start with Halloween. But naturally, we all have the same abiding passion.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was so interesting how the books both kind of, I love Venn diagrams, and everybody had their own different books around the outside of the diagram, but there was lovely overlaps, and you were reading the book, the Grand, I don't know how to pronounce
it.
Yeah.
Who else?
You said Michael Chabon. You said it was Michael's favorite book ever.
Yeah. And I looked in it and I saw that Ayala and I both mentioned Half Magic, which is
right. Yep. Yeah.
And then we asked you your most treasured book possession, and you pulled out a book that Jonathan Lethem had gifted you. I think it was Rebecca. Is that right?
It's Rebecca. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And wait till you read Jennifer Egan's interview, because she talks about the summer that she read Rebecca, and that she was in this highly emotional state all the time she was reading Rebecca, and her mother wanted her to get over that book and go on to something. But it's that kind of thing.
Wow. Oh, how interesting. Well, we're all of a certain era too, so it could be that there was Rebecca was so out of fashion that we would have never heard of it. So then to have it show up, not as a bestseller in the 40s, when was that?
Right.
30s?
Right.
But as a sort of unknown, that's the most exciting book to come across.
And I know that Jeff is dying to ask this, so I'll ask it first. Have you read any John O'Hara yet?
No, I have it. I have that whole collection on my shelf. I have the sermons and soda water and everything. No,
Yes.
no.
And what was it you told us that quote, sermons and soda water, was somewhere in your college? Is that right?
Embarrassingly, my singing group's room, like a sort of frat room,
Right.
it was painted over the door.
Let us have wine and women, mirth and laughter, sermons and soda water the day after.
So for the
that was-
audience out there, Sermons and Soda Water is the collection of 3 novellas by John O'Hara that Nancy and I both think is one of the greatest things ever written. And I reread it 2 weekends ago, reading one novella a night. And the voice in that book, it's one of the great voice books of all time. John O'Hara's voice really sings in that book.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see if Michael and Ayelet have it. Their books are organized by color, so it's
It's sort of blue and yellow in the original edition.
I remember that. There's a sort of lighter blue and yellow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's an Instagram takeover like you did, Nancy.
Isn't it? I
Listen,
mean,
yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, it's totally fun. And it's so wonderful that I mean, God, we could just keep doing this, couldn't we? We could just have everybody on. It would be super fun because there's so much to talk about. Because there's so many wonderful authors such as yourself, Andrew, profiled in the book. And this, I keep going back to this reading list, which is really so remarkable that, the reader takes away insight into these authors, but also this great list of books. So, Andrew, thank you so much for taking time to be part of it.
Thank you, guys.
Andy, so great to see you. And when you're back with Olive, give her a big hug and kiss for me.
I will. I'll see you at our event.
Okay.
Bye. Oh,
Take
that's
good
right.
care.
Bye.
Bye. Geez, God, the time is ticking, isn't it? Where did the time go? It's 45 minutes in, and all we've been doing is talking about books.
And pugs.
And pugs. He's so lovely. Oh my God, so much fun. Chris, are there any other lovely people out there?
Oh my gosh, this is really fabulous.
We couldn't possibly have anyone else, could we?
Let's open up that dating door.
All right, let's see.
Susan.
Wow.
Hi.
It's National Book Award winner, Susan Choi.
How is everybody? Hi,
We're
Jeff.
great.
Hi, Nancy.
How are you?
It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Congratulations on your National Book Award. That was so exciting for us.
Oh my God. Thank you. That's funny. I forgot that happened since I saw you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, because I saw you not this past summer, but 2 summers ago.
Yeah.
Last summer.
Back when the world was normal.
I know. It's weird. I think because it's the last time there was a normal summer, it feels like last summer to me.
Yeah.
It feels more recent. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm cranking my air conditioner.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
We interviewed you at Bread Loaf, and and then Russell, weeks later, when we interviewed Russell Banks, he talked about his experience at Bread Loaf. So you have to read that interview, because John Shardy was the head of it at that time, and Nelson Algren was teaching there.
Oh, wow.
And Russell and Nelson contrived to get, Nelson.
Russell got Nelson fired.
Well, basically. I didn't want to be so blunt, but
oh boy.
Yeah. So you must read it. It's really that interview, Russell's interview.
And then Nelson went to crash at Russell's pad in, where was that? It's a great story.
Outside Boston in Somerville, I think. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really, that was fun that we had just seen you there, and then here we were listening to a story about it in the 50s, I think.
Oh, wow. There's so many stories. It's incredible. I I don't think you could ever get to the end of the stories about that place. And I'm so glad you guys got to interview me there because
Yeah.
of course, I mean, I guess it's true of all your interviews, right? Like you got to travel all over the country just seeing people. And
Right.
it's such a good thing you did that in the summer of 2019, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things happen when they happen. Susan, thank you so much. This is so exciting that we can have you on. I know that you've got a bunch of different things going on, but we just wanted to make sure that you know, we had you on to talk about just, you know, your experience with this and with Nancy, you know, and Jeff, just this whole experience. We were talking before about like what an undertaking, you know, to identify the authors and then to make sure that they could be available to do it. And then, as you say, which I frankly didn't think about, is that you did it when you did it, and it would have been very, very different. It probably would have still happened, but I can't imagine eliciting and having these connections that you have and what came out of these conversations if you weren't able to do them the way you had done them.
Well, we were certainly all slapping, you know, the mosquitoes off our arms and that. But I just have to do a little teaser for Susan's interview. There is a really interesting theory that she offered about J.D. Salinger, which is so wonderful. Do you remember that, Susan?
Yes, I do remember that.
Perfect day for banana fish.
Yeah.
Let's not give it away. But
let's not. Although now I'm a little worried about it. It's funny because I somehow thought that this was something that was I guess a little more widely spoken of. So
well, it could be, but neither Jeff nor I had heard that theory.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what reactions are like to that idea of mine, which I won't describe any further. That's maybe just the kind of thing. I don't know. I was thinking about what Virginia just said, and I think it's really true in a way that it's going to still be hard to measure, that the fact that you did the interviews in person is just, I'm sure, making for a really, really different book than if you'd done them this summer. I mean, it's, you know, it's weird because now that we're all like this, you know, I can pop in and say hi to you, which is great, you know, and it's like, I don't even know where you guys are. I'm in Brooklyn.
We're in Seattle.
You're in Seattle.
in different places in Seattle, though.
Yeah. And so, you know, on the one hand, like there are ways in which doing an interview book like this would have been easier if you had done it in this era of coronavirus, because suddenly we're all everywhere at once, which is also why my day is so crazy, because it's like, I have a thing at 2, I have a thing at 3. It's like so many days are like this because suddenly, you know, there's not really any obstacle to being in all these different encounters. But I just feel like the conversations, like we'll never know, but the conversations wouldn't have been the same, you know, because we talked for a really long time. And I remember, I think like, did we get kicked out of the dining hall possibly? Because I think that they were like,
yeah, they were closing. I think you said, you know, we need to leave.
We didn't actually get kicked out, but we were worried. You went and talked to them and we went to a corner of the dining room where they let us stay.
Yeah. And the thing is, because Breadloaf students are the workers, you know, they're always really accommodating of the professors. Like it's always a concern, like, are they just saying it's fine? Or is it actually fine? But I remember we just talked and you know, like rambled through all sorts of like different associations that we were each having. And then it's funny, Jeff, because like my takeaway from our conversation became Nemesis, because we talked so much about that book, and I went straight to Monroe Street Books.
Right.
Wonderful.
Did I send you there? That huge.
Yeah, you did. And we went, and I bought several books. Yes.
Yeah, you can't get out of there without. Like that's another thing. Like definitely with coronavirus, you wouldn't have ended up going to a used book warehouse and like buying a bunch of books that you probably like didn't even have room for in your car. But I went like almost the next day, I think, after we saw each other, and bought a used copy of Nemesis and like read it in my hammock, like almost in a single sitting, and it was just so great because, like, you know, those conversations where you're like, oh, I should really read that, and just being able to go out and gratify that urge immediately was, you know, in the end, like, I much more remember your reading recommendation. Like, I meant to ask you actually, like, what should I read now? I need a
Well,
book
first
recommendation.
we should say that we're talking about Nemesis by Philip Roth,
Yes.
not Nemesis by Agatha Christie, which I think
No.
is the last Miss Marple mystery.
Oh, and I'm sure that title's been used.
Yes, by
Many
many people. In
times,
fact,
yeah.
Joyce Carol Oates used it as under her pseudonym Rosamund Smith, wrote a book called Nemesis. But Philip Roth's final novel, and it's set during the a fictional polio outbreak in New Jersey, but it's an especially
So prescient, like,
relevant book for this time because you feel that fear of disease.
oh my God. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just incredible to me that that was a conversation that we had last summer. And then this summer, you know, I kept thinking about that book because, of course, my son, who has gone to summer camp every summer since he was 9 years old, and his life revolves around that camp. And this summer was to have been his senior culminating summer, and it didn't happen. And then even, I don't know how many of you listen to All Things Considered or Morning Edition. I guess it would have been
Sure.
Morning Edition because it was this morning. But there was a story in Morning Edition about camps that have figured out how to monetize the off season for families who can afford to send their kids to camp now, where the kids like form into pods and do their remote schooling from these camps. And it's just sort of heartbreaking to me because, you know, this is like a very elite group of children who will get to do their remote schooling in this way. But I just kept thinking about that Roth novel and about summer camp and about, you know, the horrifying, terrifying scene when they discover that polio has gotten into the camp and how scary it is. It's just like, I'm so glad I read that book last summer and not this summer.
I know. I remember reading it, and then Roth retired, and I was heartbroken because I felt that was Roth, not at quite peak Roth, perhaps, but in the sense that it's not a huge book like his big books like American Pastoral and The Human Stain, but for a small, compact book, it's perfect.
I agree. And I really admire it because it's so compact.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of his very, very best, you know, and Goodbye Columbus is one of the books that I teach almost every time I can teach something that long, because it's such a perfect work, in large part because it's short, you know, it does everything that it needs to do in a really, you know, I'm making gestures, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Slender, compact, efficient.
An interesting thing Michael Chabon told us was that when he was writing his first novel, The Mysteries of Pittsburgh, he looked at Goodbye Columbus and The Great Gatsby as two models that were sort of books that take place over one summer and are very compact.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Is that in his interview?
I think it's in there. For us, it's hard to remember exactly what is in the final interviews and what we had to cut out.
I think that is.
Yeah.
This is going to be such a good book to teach from. I have to say, I can't wait to teach from it. Because, you know, books that are about the ways in which writers make their work, like not like how to write, but writers talking about like the all of the different things that go into it are so rare. And this book is I can't wait to assign interviews from this book, because one of the things that I find students kind of benefit from the most is interviews about the process, and reading is like such a huge part of the process for writers. It's like, we can't write without our reading. And I've never done an interview like the one I did with you guys, where you just asked me what I read. Like, I've never actually, I don't think I've ever even come close to that, except interviewers who will say like, what are you reading now? Or, you know, or what was influential to this particular book, but not like the larger, what works did you read that kind of ended up making you who you are.
Right.
Yeah, that fact, I was excited when you said that about Michael Chabon, Jeff, because I taught this how to write a novel class. It was a total folly, like an insane thing to do in a semester format. But I was like, let's just see if this is possible, which it isn't. But you can try, and it's interesting. And so we wrote and read, obviously, their writing, but I only assigned 4 books because I didn't want to overwhelm them with reading while they were supposed to be writing so much. And the 4 books, 2 of them were Goodbye Columbus and The Great Gatsby. Just because of like storytelling economy. And
yeah,
I never even thought about the fact that, of course, they do take place like in that unity of time, like in a single summer. I like that thought didn't even occur to me. I just really like them, and they're short.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
I bet several of your students wrote books as good as The Mysteries of Pittsburgh as a result.
Well, that's a pretty good book. And
It is.
And if you have like a Michael Chabon type of student walk through your class like once in a blue moon, it's pretty exciting.
That's right.
But at least, one of my students from that class has published now an excellent novel, and has a second novel that is forthcoming. And she actually published an amazing op-ed about voting and how important it is for, especially, she writes about her mother, who is an immigrant who never voted before and has just voted by mail for the first time in this.
You should tell us who she is. So
her name is Catherine J. Chen. Catherine J. Chen, initial J. Her novel is called Mary B, and it's a retelling of Mary Bennett's life. From Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, that's great.
And she published, and she was in my very, very first novel writing class where she had to read The Great Gatsby. And I'm not going to say that the class was at all responsible for her book. She's just a very talented writer. But it's exciting to be able to say that someone who took your how to write a novel class then actually did.
Wow, that's pretty wonderful. Congratulations. Hats off. That's great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay.
Susan, I have a question for you since you're here. Are you still working on your big book?
When you say big book, do you mean the book that I described about my grandfather?
The one that I think so. The one you'd been working on and off, and that you took a break from to write Trust Exercise?
Yes. So the answer is both yes and no. So yes, the book is not finished. And I have tried on rare occasions in the past year to get back into it. And no, I'm not writing it right now.
Okay.
It continues to just be like the problem.
The bête noire, as the French say.
Yes.
I wanted to congratulate you on your short story in the New Yorker.
Yeah.
Because you said to us during the interview, you didn't think you could ever write a short story. That every time you tried to write a short story, it turned into a novel because you couldn't control it.
Yeah, well, that's funny. That's true. And thank you. I'm really excited about the story. I was really thrilled with the way it came out, but I wasn't lying, because that story actually was carved out of an incomplete, completely sprawling, out of control, I don't know what I'll ever do with it, pile of stuff that is maybe a novel in the making. So it's like disguised as a short story, but it's really just more evidence of like an unfinished book.
Yeah. Well, as I said to you, I thought the final chapter of Trust Exercise could have stood as a short story on its own without, I mean, it's a wonderful capstone to the novel, but even without having read the previous sections of the novel, you could have just read that last chapter as a standalone story.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's so interesting to hear you say that, because when the book was being prepared for publication, there's always this kind of frenzy about like first serial, like how can we try to excerpt this book, and no one suggested doing that.
Well, you wouldn't want to do that because it would have given away the end of the novel.
Oh, true. Actually, maybe that's why no one suggested it. You're right. But no one even said, "Oh, it's too bad we can't do this," because it is so self-contained. But it is pretty self-contained, actually. And there are a couple of, I think I might have told you guys, or I've certainly told somebody because it's one of these stories that I can't seem to stop telling. And I actually am going to have to get off in a few minutes because I have to go to yet another, I have to do an interview that's actually not going to be live, but it's going to be for the series Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures, which is an appearance I was supposed to do in Pittsburgh, speaking of Pittsburgh and its mysteries, but sadly it will be digital like this.
Well, feel free to share my Mysteries of Pittsburgh anecdote during it.
I will. I would love to work that in because, you know, they're in Pittsburgh. But what I was going to say is that when I was trying to end Trust Exercise, I actually wrote the ending section multiple times. And there were 4 different attempts at an ending. And one of the 3 that didn't get used, I've sometimes thought maybe I would try to rework it into a short story. So maybe that will happen.
Well, we're so glad that you're part of the book, and we know you have to go. And
I'm so glad too, Nancy. Thank you. Yeah. I'm so glad, and I'm so glad that you guys got to do the grand tour. You know, and hopefully you've got a lot of like travel and seeing different places stored up in you to draw on during this no travel, not seeing anything different time, which I hope is going to end soon.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
We hope so too. But thanks to things like this, we're able to, you know, spread the word. And thanks to people like you, Susan, who were able to take the time to come and surprise Nancy and Jeff. You know,
I'm really glad it worked out.
Yeah. And
surprise.
and Chris Connolly right here pulled up the piece by Catherine Chen. So the link is there.
Yay, that's great.
There it is. Thanks for doing that. So I know you have to go. And so we thank you so much. We wish you well, Susan, and everybody check out that interview because it's quite intriguing.
Susan, it's so great to see you. Thank you.
Great to see you. It's great to see you all. And congratulations. I can't wait to get my hands on the book. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And
it should be on its way to you.
Yeah, I literally can't wait. I'm checking the mail basket. So I'll be really excited when it arrives. And thanks again, you guys, for last summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Bye, Susan. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you. My pleasure. Bye.
And now, no, I'm not kidding.
This is such a treat. Thank you, Virginia. And thank you, Chris. I don't want to leave you out.
Team effort.
So
Team effort
much
here. We wanted to have a surprise party to celebrate the book's birthday. I mean, I don't know what else we can say unless there are just some things that you want to say to make sure that folks know we're going to share this lots and lots on Facebook. So there'll be lots of people watching. Nancy? Jeff?
Yeah, I think we've used up an hour and 5 minutes, and you got all these great writers here, and we loved doing the book, and we loved that Harper published it, and we hope there are a lot of readers who will enjoy the interviews as much as we enjoyed doing them.
Yep. Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
I feel
both.
the same.
Yeah, I can't say enough about it. It was exciting 17 years ago when you told me about it. And I can't wait to hold a copy in my hand, but it's really what's between those. It's the content, and it's just so wonderful. So folks, get yourselves a copy if you don't already. If your system doesn't have it, it will soon. There's a link there. You can buy it. You can listen to it. So super cool. And Nancy Pearl, Jeff Schwager, authors of the Writer's Library, on sale today. We thank you so much for this this wonderful book that you've given us. It's truly a treasure.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. This was great fun.
Great. Well, take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Mwah.
Mwah.
Mwah.